Hi and welcome to our video presentation of the new Enudge drag and drop editor. During this video, what we're going to do is have a look at another company's email and recreate that using the new Enudge drag and drop editor, just to give you a full experience on how to do that for your own company. So you'll see on screen here, we've already logged into Enudge, just a test account. And you can see here also is the email that we're going to replicate. So it's from one of the brands that I subscribe to. And if we scroll down, we'll see we've got a logo at the top, a bit of a nav bar, and then some content of text and images. And keep scrolling down, you'll see at the bottom we've got information about an app and some various other content as well. And so, yeah, let's get into recreating it. So jumping back into Enudge, we're going to create a new email campaign just by clicking on this. And let's give it a name, review campaign, and scroll down, just a test. Logo position. So we can see that the campaign's got the review logo up the top, images. So we're going to include T for top there. And we won't worry about including the review logo in the email campaign itself. And yep, we're going to send it today. So save campaign. And what that does is a new email is now created. And we can see that in our list of campaigns. And I can go straight into email content and test. And then click on edit to go and start editing the email campaign in our new drag and drop editor. So we're just waiting for the editor to load, which takes a few seconds because there's so much in it. So we'll just wait for that to come up on screen now. And of course, we start with nothing in our campaign, which is just fine. So what we want to do is create the structure first for our email. And we can do that easily by grabbing some rows here. And so let's have a full spanning row, and we'll put in a few more really, because we can see that there's quite a few rows of content. So I'm just going to come over here. You'll see that as we scroll down, there are sections where there is a different background color and different fonts and different content. And so we want basically to have a row for each one of those. So as I said, we're going to ignore the review logo, but we'll need a row for this navigation, a row for the free shipping, a row for the 50% off, which has got a deep red color. And then of course, we'll need a row for that image, a row for text, and so on. So we can add more rows at any time. So we can just get started in the first row, which is a navigation bar. To add a navigation bar to our first row, we simply click on Content and find Menu. And we'll drag that and drop that here. Now it looks like it's going to be a hamburger or file drawer navigation, but as we add items, you'll see that that changes. So we're going to go Add New Item. And the first item in our navigation is Shop New. So let's add that. So the text is to be Shop New, all in capitals. And here we could put in the URL, which is going to be the website address that clicking on Shop New is going to take you to. I'm not going to worry about that. And we'll go Add New Item. Of course, when you're making your real campaign, you would worry about that. But you can see here now, I keep on adding and you'll see that they are appearing. So dresses, then we've got separates, and then we've got blog, and then we've got trend edit and sale. So let's add two more items, trend edit and sale. Okay, great. And you can see now how that's appearing. Now that's made me realize actually they're quite close together. So we're going to want to change some things about this row, but we're also going to want to change the overall campaign. because we want it to be just a little bit wider. So if we go to settings here, this is where we can see overall settings for our campaign. So I happen to know that this email campaign is 640 pixels wide. And so I'm setting that now, and correctly we've got that the whole content is centered, which is correct. Background color is white, so that's the color over on the edges. And then the central part of the email is picking up the white background because the content area is set to transparent. So it's picking up the background color. So that's perfectly fine for right now. And we can see that the default font is Arial, which is actually also correct for this particular campaign. But if you ever need to change that default font for your whole campaign, you can come in here and find one of these standard fonts to make that for your own campaign. Okay. Right. So now back to editing the look and feel of that row. So if I click on the row here, we can now see that there's a whole bunch of attributes of that particular row. Now, at the bottom here, you can see that we've got top, right, bottom and left padding. So if I click back to the email here, you can see that we've got some padding around it. Okay, so now back to editing the actual look and feel of our navigation. So to do that, we need to click again into where the navigation bar is. And if you scroll right down to after all the items, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of options with regard to how this content actually looks. So to match the design that we're copying, we need to make the font a little bit smaller. So we'll reduce that down. That looks about right. And then we actually want to make it bold. There we are. And then we want to add a little bit of padding in between. By default, the items have got 5 pixels in between. We can increase that simply by clicking on this little button here, and we'll do that again. And nearly looks good. Maybe a bit more. There we go. That's looking pretty close to the design that we're copying. But compared to the design we're copying, it looks like there's a little bit too much gap between the top and the bottom of this section. So if we go to the row and scroll right down to the bottom, you can see that all sides of this row has got 5 pixels. So we're going to take that out. So now we can see that we've got enough padding in between the items, but it feels like there's too much padding at the top and the bottom. And that's because this padding setting is automatically all sides. If we click on more options, this is where we can actually make some changes that apply to just one side. So we're going to reduce the top, and then we're going to reduce the bottom. And usually you want them all to be the same. So now this is looking a lot more like it, but you see that there's still a gap at the bottom and top. That's actually coming from the row. So I just clicked on the row, and if we scroll right down, you'll see that by default, every row has padding of 5 pixels on all sides. You're probably going to want to remove that every time you have a row. So let's just go and do that now. Taking away the padding off all sides of every row. And that just means that it's really nice and easy for us to have everything abutting against each other and no extra gaps. So now that I've done that, actually what I want to do is add just a little bit more space in this navigation element. So again, go right down to the bottom, and I'm going to add just a little bit more at the top and the bottom. Now that's looking really good. Now to get my horizontal line above the navigation, we need to actually add another component, and that is the divider. So I'm picking that up and dragging and dropping it where we want it to be, and here it is now showing. So again, we've got padding around that. We've got automatically 10 pixels padding on all sides. So we want to change that. We don't mind the left and right padding because you can see that there's a bit of padding here, but what we don't want is the top and bottom padding. So I'm just going to remove that down to nothing. And if we click away, you can now see that horizontal line. It's not quite what we want, so I'm going to click on that again, and I'm going to make sure it's black because at the moment it defaulted to being a grey colour. So it's now black, and again we can click away and see that there. Right, now we want to create this light grey coloured row with text in the middle. You'll see here that it's got a different colour background, and so let us now add that. So what we want to do is really just add some text. So I'm going to drag the paragraph into that row, and you can see now that it by default adds some text so that you can see it there and makes that left aligned. So we want to change quite a few things about this. So again, we're going to reduce the size of our font, and now let's actually type in our text. So now clearly it's meant to be centered, so again using the content properties on the right hand side, that's easy to do. And we want to have free shipping to be bold, so as I select free shipping using just a shift and left arrow, this editor comes up which is just related to the actual text itself, and I can choose bold to make it bold, and there we are, that is done, except we need our light grey colour. So what we need to do is we need to select the row and see how we've got row background colour. It's transparent, so it's picking up the background of our overall email, which is set in settings. And then we have a content area background, which is what we want to change. So this is the one that we want to put in a colour. So currently it's set to transparent. We want to make that our darker grey. That is now set. Our next row has got a burgundy colour. So again, we want some more text. So going back to content, we'll choose paragraph, drop that in here, and then we can go in and type our text. Okay, so obviously that text needs to be white, but first let's change the background for our row. So content area background, and that is our nice red colour, and I picked up those colours earlier, so I knew what they were to make it nice and quick. And if we go back into our content here, we can now change the text colour to white. There it is. Now clearly it needs to be a bit bigger and also centered. So I can click on the center icon here, and we can just click to find the size that we want, which is 24 pixels. And we still need some more changes to be made. So we want the first section of text to be bold. Now I can just hit Control B and that makes it bold as well. So that's a nice easy shortcut rather than having to click on the icon. And we want some more padding. So, and I've just realized we don't want the text to be centered, we want it to be left aligned. So now let's add some padding to try and replicate the design. And here we are up to 40 pixels. That looks pretty close. And now the next part of the email is this lovely image, and we are going to upload that image and add it into our campaign. The first thing we need to do is to drag the image type of content in, and then we will click on Browse. And you'll see we don't have any images in here, so we're just going to upload our image. Now, I have all of the images that we need for this campaign nicely stored here. I know that I need them all, so I'm just going to open and upload all of them. And while we wait for them to upload, I'll just explain the reason I did that is because it just makes it so much faster for me to actually pick the images when we're building out the campaign. So it's super cool that it lets you upload multiple images at once. We just have to wait for them all to upload. Great, so now we have them all, and now the next one that we needed, the one that we needed for this component was this one here. So I'm just going to click on it, and that automatically inserted it into our campaign. So you can start to see now it's really building out nicely. So the next section of content is some text. So we need some more rows because we've run out of rows. So let me just go and grab another row and pop it in. And we're going to need a few more, so I'll just drag and drop some rows in here. And because all of these rows have content that spans the full width, except for this one, that's why I've been picking up this full width empty row. Okay, so the first thing we want now is some text. So I'm going to grab our paragraph again, and this one we want to be centered, and we are going to add in our content. And we want this to go down to the next line, so I just hit enter. Great, so here it is, and we can see that there's too much gap between these rows, so I'm going to reduce the paragraph spacing, and there we go, that looks about right now. I'm going to remove the extra padding around the rows that we've just added a minute ago, reducing those all to 0. Okay, now we do want a little bit more gap though above the text and underneath the text. So I'm going to add that now. So we'll click on this content again, go to our padding, choose more options, and we're going to add quite a bit of padding at the top and a little bit less at the bottom. We want to add some more text because we want to have the link to shop the print, and so we are going to insert that now, shop the print, and you can see that that font is quite a bit smaller. So we're going to come back here and choose our 10-point font, and then we're going to center that. We're going to make it bold, and then we're going to add a link. So for now, just to keep it nice and simple, we're going to add a link to the Contact Point website, and we want to make sure that that link opens in a new window, and we have underlined the link turned on. Now, we don't want the link to be blue, we want the link to be black. So we're going to change that to black, and of course you can drag and drop as well as choose one of the suggested colours. And so that is now in place. You can see that the gap between the shop the print and the underline isn't quite the same as the design that we're copying. The reason that it isn't is because this is actually an image in the original email. I recommend that you don't use images for things like that, because then when someone receives your email, prior to downloading images like this, which are in the content of their email, they can still see some information. So that's why we haven't implemented it as an image. We want a little bit more padding at the bottom. So the next element we need to add to our email is this image here. So let's now add an image to our next row and choose browse, and then we'll find the image that we're after, which is this one here, and voila, it's in place. So we probably want just a little bit more gap beneath. So let's add that now. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Bottom. Okay, there we go. And then we have some text here as well. So I'm going to go to our content and add a paragraph to the section below. And we are also going to make sure that the background color, I just noticed on all of these elements, needs to be that light gray that we talked about before. So that's fine. We can just click on our row here and choose the content area background being the light gray. There we are, that's done. And if we come down now here to our row, and we'll put the same thing in here. Okay, let's add our content, which I'll do quickly for us. Now, okay, we can see that the next thing we need to add is a little bit more text. And again, the original email campaign had implemented that as an image. So we're going to do that slightly differently. Again, because I think it's much nicer if you have content that people can actually see before downloading. So we're going to add a paragraph. I'm going to quickly put that content in for us, and then let's try and replicate the look and feel of that image by making the font a little bit smaller and changing the font. So I'm going to go with something with with serifs. So let's go with Times New Roman, and let's make it italics. Control I does that for us, or you can select and choose italics, and let's make it bold. We'll see if that looks good. I see that their color is probably a little bit of a gray, so let's do that. And now what we really want is to have it spread out a little bit more nicely. So I'm going to go Control Enter just to do a soft line break. Control Enter, and we want to center the whole thing. So there we go. That's pretty close. We need a little bit more of a gap here. So we're going to add padding to the top. There we are. That looks pretty good. And now we also need our final text. And I'm going to make that not italics, and that looks pretty good. Now, because the font is all governed by this one set of content over the content properties on the right, we can easily change it all. I just want to make that font just a little bit lighter grey. There we go. I think that's pretty close. All right. So now we have a row that we need to implement, which is two images side by side. So the best way to do that is to bring in a row that's actually split 50-50. And so I'm going to drag that into our design here. That is now. And now we can add the individual images in. Just so I'm going to pop an image in each side of that row and then click Browse. We will find the image for the left, which is this one here. Click Insert and then click on Browse, and we'll find the image for the right. Click Insert. Okay, so we can see how they look now. So drag and drop editor automatically makes the images fill the available area, but we want to have just a little bit of padding. So you can see here we've got some padding. All right. So let's add that now. Just a little bit of padding on each side of the image. So I'm going to go left. In fact, we can probably make it all sides. And if we do the same over here, all sides, you can see that they line up nicely and there's a gap in between. So the gap is maybe a little bit more than we wanted, so I'm going to just go into here and go left is a little bit less. We'll take it down to 5. You can actually double click on here and make it the exact measurement you want, but generally speaking, going by increments of 5 will be fine. and I'm going to make that 5 as well, and you can see now that it's nicely laid out. Okay, and if we want to have the same grey colour in behind, which we do, we simply come here and change the content area background again to our very light grey colour. And there it is. All right, looking lovely. Okay, finally, we've got some more content here and lots of links. Now, just to speed things up, because I don't want to bore you too much, it's pretty simple to go and add another row of content, as you've already seen. But let's show you how to add this row of icons here. Now, the icons have all been set up as images with the label underneath and the text underneath. And that's just to make it nice and easy to get them all looking the same. And that's why it's been designed that way. So let's add our row, which is going to have, how many were there? 5 elements in it. So if I come down here and find, there's 4 and then there's 6. So we're going to choose the 6 and I'll show you what to do here. So we are going to put in images in each of those, except we don't want one in the 6th. To remove the 6th element, we'll click on the row and we'll scroll down and you can see the column structure here. We want to get rid of that last one, so we just click on it and choose delete. And now you can see we've got one too many columns. So to deal with that, we're going to select the row and then scroll down and we're going to click on one of these and choose delete. But you can still see that it's not exactly what we want because this one is taking up 4 spaces and these are 2, 2, 2 and 2. So what we're going to do is just drag this one along and you can see that it is changing. And now we have 2 with 3 on either side and then 2, 2, 2 in the middle. It's just the way that columns are actually laid out for the editor, but this will help us to get the layout exactly that we want. Okay, so now let's start adding those images in. So I'm going to browse for the first one, which is our free shipping image. Let's just find that one, choose that, insert. The next image we want is the click and collect. Insert. The next one we want is Afterpay. Click insert. And then we want True Fit. Click insert. And finally, we want returns. We're now going to go in and fix up the spacing. The way we'll do that is to add padding on the left-hand side of just this left one and on the right-hand side of the rightmost one. So I'm clicking on this single element here, scrolling down, go to more options, and we're going to add padding to the left. And you'll notice that as I do that, the image gets smaller. So 50 pixels on the right-hand side, the left-hand side fixed that. So 50 pixels on here will fix this one as well. There we are, looking perfect. Last thing we're going to do is insert this row of social media icons. So we're going to go to the content tab, we're going to choose social, drag that into the row, and by default we'll see here that the standard color scheme for the various icons is selected. You can choose different color schemes and square with rounded corners icons instead, or blue, and so this one here looks pretty similar, but you can see that the color is different. So in this scenario, we're actually going to use our own icons. To use our own icons, we need to click on the Add New and then choose Add a Custom Icon. We're going to change the image And what I'm going to do is upload all of the various icons that are in this campaign. So we have gone and grabbed all of those, uploading each of those, and then we'll be able to use those instead in each place in our social tab. We want to have Facebook first, so we'll choose change image and grab Facebook, and then I'm going to go and remove each of these other ones because they're going to get in our way. So we're getting rid of each of those. And then what we'll do is we'll call this Facebook, and then we can again have Facebook. And then what we'd do is you would add the URL for your particular Facebook link. We're going to add a new one. We're going to choose another custom icon, add custom. We're going to change the image. We're going to make it our Instagram icon and so on. And I'll just go and do that and I'll be back in a moment. Now that we've added all the icons in, all we need to do is put the right spacing in between. So if we click on the elements again and come down here, and you'll see that there's icon spacing and also padding. So let's just make it 10 pixels in between. Let's make it 20. And let's add some padding as well. And there we go. That's looking pretty good. All right. So when you're done, of course, you're going to hit save, and that's going to save all of your content so that you can then return to your campaign and continue editing and send out your test messages. There is one more thing that I'd like to tell you about before we finish up, and that is mobile responsiveness. So if we click on mobile here, we can actually see what the email is going to look like on a mobile phone. It actually doesn't look too bad, but there are some things that I'd like to show. When we click on a section here, you can see that again we get our context menu on the right hand side, and you can see that now we can see some things that are showing a mobile icon here. And what that means is if we change those settings, they'll only apply on mobile. One of the things that's often useful to do is make your font a little bit bigger on mobile. So I'm going to click in the paragraph, and you'll see now we're seeing the settings for the paragraph, and you can see that we've got mobile here, and we can actually now adjust the font size. So I do recommend that you make your font just a little bit bigger on mobile. And again here I clicked on the next paragraph section, and we can go and do that throughout the whole campaign. So I'm just taking up the font size by a couple of points. Another thing you might like to do is sections where there are two columns side by side, to make them not be side by side, instead are stacked on mobile, because it makes them actually bigger and easier to see. So when I clicked on this row here that's got the two columns, if we scroll down, you can see that there's this option here, stack on mobile, and that is currently off. If we turn that on, you can see now that the images are stacked one on top of each other, making them a lot easier to see on mobile. And so if we continue through, increase our font size for each of the different sections, and our final section as well, you'll want to do that also. And so now we're seeing how the email is going to look on mobile. And if we flip back to desktop, you'll see that nothing here has changed. So that's a really important thing to do on your email campaigns. Make sure that they're going to look great on mobile as well. There are a few other things that I can show you about the editor that will speed up your editing process. So let's run through those quickly now. So if I want to duplicate any element of my email campaign, that's very easy to do. You just click in it. You'll see in this context menu here that you can click on the copy icon, and voila, another version of that is inserted into my email for me, so I can go and use that without having to set paddings and font sizes and colors and things. It's all already copied across. And then I can move that somewhere else using the move icon. So here we are. If I actually don't want that, I can click on the delete icon. The other thing you can do is you can undo your changes by using the undo icon down here, or redo. So I'm going to undo, and you see that now I've got my row back, or I can redo and get rid of it again. So the undo and redo is really helpful. And lastly, a super helpful thing is what's called saved rows. If I particularly like a component of the campaign, I can select that row, I can choose to save it. So there's a save icon here. If I click on save, I can give it a name to help me find it again. So to images side by side, and I can give it a longer description if I want to as well, and then click save row. And so now if somewhere else in my campaign I wanted to add that row, I can simply come to rows, choose saved rows, and then drag and drop my 2 images side by side row and wait for it to be installed, and here we are. So now of course I can come in and change those images to be something else. So I hope that's been really helpful for you. And of course, when you're done, you need to click on save. That saves your email template back into your email campaign in Enudge. And then to return to the campaign will come up here. You can also, by the way, choose a template to create your campaign from, which is nice and easy to do. And that will override everything in your email. So make sure you want to do that before you actually make that insertion. And returning to campaign so that you can send test messages and so on is simply done by clicking on return to campaign. We look forward to hearing how you go with our new drag and drop editor, and we're really loving using it ourselves, and we hope you are too.